Grease covered Danny's hands as he twisted the final bolt into place. The atmospheric processor hummed back to life, pushing clean air through the ventilation system of Orbital Station 17. He wiped his forehead with the back of his wrist and checked his watch, almost feeding time. Most people on the station ignored the small, furry creatures that lived in the maintenance tunnels. Some complained about them. A few even suggested spacing them all. Danny saw things differently. These animals had nowhere else to go, and he had food to spare. The Perseids arrived on a colony ship 3 years ago. The settlement failed within months, and the ship limped back to this station before dying completely. The colonists scattered across different vessels, heading for other worlds. They left behind these cat-like creatures, descendants of Earth felines mixed with something else during the long generation ships. Nobody wanted them. Nobody except Danny. He grabbed his tool bag and headed toward the lower maintenance levels. His boots clanged on the metal grating. The station stretched out around him, a massive wheel spinning in space. Thousands of beings called this place home. Humans made up maybe 1% of the population. Danny liked it that way. Less drama, more work. The first feeding spot sat behind a coolant tank in Sector 7. Danny pulled out a container of dried food and poured it into a shallow dish. Within seconds, a gray Perseid emerged from the shadows. Stripe, Danny called her. White markings ran down her back like lightning bolts. "Hey girl," Danny said softly, "hungry today?" Stripe purred and rubbed against his leg before diving into the food. Two more Perseids appeared, a black one he named Socks and a brown tabby called Patch. Danny had names for all 37 of them. He knew their personalities, their favorite spots, which ones got along and which ones fought. The station manager hated it. Click 7th Brood was a Quillari, an insectoid species that valued efficiency above everything else. To him, feeding non-productive animals wasted resources. He told Danny this at least once a week. Danny moved through the maintenance tunnels, setting out food at 6 different locations. The Perseids knew his schedule. They waited at each spot, meowing softly when they saw him. Some let him pet them. Others kept their distance but ate gratefully. In a place beyond normal space, something ancient stirred. Bastet had slept for thousands of years. The prayers stopped long ago. The temples crumbled to dust. Humanity spread across the stars and forgot the old gods. Yet something pulled at her consciousness now, a familiar pattern of devotion. She looked through the veil between worlds and saw a man feeding cats on a metal station far from Earth. He spoke to them gently. He used his own money to buy their food. He did this every single day without fail. No one asked him to. No one thanked him. He did it because the cats needed someone. Bastet felt warmth she had not experienced in millennia. This human remembered. Not her name, not her temples, but the sacred bond itself. The duty to protect those smaller and weaker. The joy of caring for creatures that served no practical purpose except to exist. Danny finished his rounds and headed to the cantina for dinner. The place buzzed with a dozen different languages. Quillari clicked and chittered in their booths. Hronthi, massive reptilian beings, ate raw meat at the center tables. A group of Veshan traders argued over shipping routes near the windows. He ordered a simple meal and sat alone. A human woman approached his table. Ruth Coleman, captain of a freight hauler that stopped at the station regularly. She had kind eyes and silver hair tied back in a practical bun. "Mind if I sit?" she asked. Danny shrugged. "Free station." Ruth smiled and set down her tray. "Heard you been feeding those Perseids." "Someone has to." Click 7th Brood is complaining about it again. Says you waste too much time on worthless animals. Danny ate his food slowly. "They're not worthless." "I know," Ruth said. "Had a cat myself back on my ship. Old Tom named Boots, best friend I ever had, died last year." They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Finally, Ruth spoke again. "Just wanted you to know some of us get it, why you do what you do." After dinner, Danny returned to his small quarters. The station provided basic housing for essential workers, one room with a bed, a desk, and a tiny bathroom. He did not need much. His last paycheck went mostly to purchased food and medical supplies. As he lay down to sleep, he heard scratching at his door. Danny opened it to find a small orange pursid limping in the corridor. Blood matted its fur on one side. The animal looked up at him with frightened eyes. "Come here, buddy," Danny whispered. He scooped up the injured pursid carefully and brought it inside. Against station regulations, but he could not leave the poor thing suffering in the hallway. He set it on a towel and examined the wound. Looked like a machinery accident. Sharp metal had cut deep into the pursid's side. Danny spent the next 3 hours cleaning and bandaging the injury. The pursid, which he decided to call Rusty for its orange fur, stayed remarkably calm. It seemed to understand Danny was trying to help. When he finished, Rusty curled up on the towel and fell asleep, purring softly despite the pain. In the realm beyond, Bastet leaned forward. This human had kind hands and a gentle heart. He sacrificed his rest to save one small life. She touched the sleeping pursid with a fragment of her power, just enough to ease its pain and speed its healing. The animal's fur glowed faintly gold for a moment, then returned to normal orange. Danny collapsed on his bed, exhausted. Tomorrow would bring more work, more complaints from Click 7th Brood, more judgment from those who saw caring for animals as weakness. But tonight, Rusty slept peacefully on his floor, safe and warm. That made everything worth it. The goddess watched her chosen one sleep and smiled. Rusty's breathing came easier by morning. Danny woke to find the small pursid sitting up, licking its paw. The bandage remained clean and secure. The animal looked at him with bright eyes and meowed softly. "Feeling better?" Danny asked. He changed the bandage carefully. The wound looked much better than it should after just one night. Danny figured he got lucky with how he cleaned it. He gave Rusty some water and a bit of food, which the pursid ate eagerly. His work shift started in an hour. Danny could not leave Rusty alone, not with the injury still fresh. He fashioned a carrier from an old equipment box, padding it with spare clothes. Rusty seemed content to ride in it as Danny headed to the maintenance bay. The bay hummed with activity. 3 Hronthi workers hauled cargo containers. A Veshan mechanic argued with a pilot about repair costs. Danny kept his head down and went to his assigned workstation. He had 5 repair orders waiting. Broken environmental controls, faulty gravity plating, a stuck door mechanism. He set the carrier under his workbench where no one would notice and got to work. Between jobs, he checked on Rusty. The pursid slept peacefully, occasionally purring loud enough for Danny to hear over the bay noise. In her divine realm, Bastet observed everything. She had forgotten what it felt like to have a true follower. This man asked nothing from her. He did not even know she existed, yet he embodied everything she once valued in humanity. Kindness without expectation, protection of the weak, love for creatures others dismissed. She reached across the veil again carefully. Divine power flowed differently in this age. Humanity's scattered faith made it harder to manifest. But around Danny, around the pursids he cared for, the barriers seemed thinner. She touched Rusty again, strengthening the healing she started. Midday brought trouble. Click 7th Brood scuttled into the maintenance bay on his 6 legs. His compound eyes swept the area until they locked on Danny. The Quillari manager approached with sharp, clicking steps. "Reeves," Click 7th Brood said. His translator made his voice sound mechanical. "We need to discuss the pursid problem." Danny looked up from the gravity plating he was repairing. "What problem?" "Multiple merchants have complained. The creatures contaminate food shipments. They trigger allergies in several species. They damage equipment." Click 7th Brood's antennae twitched with irritation. "You must stop feeding them immediately." "They only eat what I give them," Danny said calmly. "They don't bother anyone who leaves them alone." That is not the point. Resources cannot be wasted on non-productive animals. I am giving you 1 week. Stop feeding them or find employment elsewhere. Danny felt anger rise in his chest. He kept his voice level. I feed them on my own time with my own money. It doesn't affect my work. It affects station harmony. 1 week Reeves. Click 7th Brood turned and scuttled away. The other workers pretended they had not heard. Nobody wanted to get involved in management disputes. Danny went back to his repair work, but his hands shook slightly. He could not stop feeding the Perseids. What would happen to them? Most would starve. Some might survive by hunting the small vermin in the ventilation systems, but not all. That evening, Ruth Coleman found him in the lower maintenance levels during his feeding rounds. She carried 2 large bags of Perseid food. Heard about Click 7th Brood's ultimatum, she said. News travels fast. Station gossip is faster than light speed. Ruth set down the bags. I made some calls, talked to other human captains in the sector. We're pooling resources to help. Danny stared at her. Why? Because you're doing the right thing. Humans understand that even if the Quillari don't, she smiled. We take care of our own and we take care of cats. Always have, always will. Over the next few days, more humans arrived at the station. Freight captains, miners, survey crews. They all brought supplies. They all offered support. Word had spread through the human community across 6 systems. A mechanic stood up for some cats, and humans everywhere responded. Bastet watched this with growing wonder. She had seen human faith before in her temples and shrines, but this was different. This was not worship of her directly. This was humans recognizing something sacred in kindness itself. They came together not because a god demanded it, but because it was right. The goddess felt her power growing. Each act of compassion, each human who brought food or offered help, strengthened her connection to the material world. She had been starving for faith, and now it flowed toward her in unexpected ways. Danny began to notice strange things. Perseids appeared in places they should not be able to reach. His tool requests processed instantly instead of taking days. Machinery he touched seemed to work smoother. Other mechanics mentioned his unusual luck. One night he dreamed of walking through an enormous temple. White stone columns stretched toward a golden sky. Statues of cats lined the walkways, each one different, each one beautiful. A woman's voice spoke, warm and ancient. "Why do you care for them?" the voice asked. Danny looked around but saw no one. "They need someone. They give you nothing in return." "Don't do it for returns," Danny said. "Do it because it's right." "Yes," the voice purred, "you understand." He woke with Rusty sitting on his chest, staring down at him. For just a moment the Perseid's eyes glowed pure gold. Then the moment passed. Rusty meowed and demanded breakfast. Danny got up and fed him. The bandage came off that morning. The wound had healed completely, not even a scar. Danny examined it carefully. Impossible. The injury should have taken weeks to heal. But there it was, perfect orange fur with no sign of damage. He looked at Rusty. The Perseid purred and rubbed against his hand. Something was happening here, something Danny did not understand. But right now, he had bigger problems. Click 7th Brood's deadline approached, and Danny still had no solution. 5 days remained until Click 7th Brood's deadline. Danny noticed the Perseids behaving oddly. They moved through the station in organized groups now, almost like they had a purpose. Stripe led a cluster of 6 through the upper maintenance tunnels. Socks and Patch coordinated movements near the cargo bays. It was strange, but Danny had larger concerns. The human community on the station kept growing. Ships diverted from their routes specifically to dock at Orbital Station 17. Captains brought supplies and offered to smuggle Perseids off-station if needed. Danny appreciated the help but refused to split up the colony. These animals lived together. They needed to stay together. Machinery throughout the station started behaving better. Engineers noticed it first. Systems that usually required constant maintenance ran smoothly. Environmental controls stabilized. Power distribution evened out. Nobody could explain it. The Veshan mechanics joked that the station itself was happy. The Hronthi workers grumbled about superstition. Only Danny suspected the truth, though he barely believed it himself. Every time a person walked past a malfunctioning system, the problem seemed to resolve. Tools worked better in his hands. Repairs completed faster. And Rusty, who followed Danny everywhere now, watched everything with those increasingly golden eyes. Bastet grew stronger each day. The compassion flowing through the humans on the station fed her divine essence. She could touch the material world more easily now. The Persids felt her presence and responded to her will. They became her eyes and ears, her small protectors throughout the metal corridors. She began appearing to the Persids directly, a shimmering golden figure, part woman and part feline, visible only to them. She guided their movements, coordinated their activities, prepared them for what was coming. The goddess knew Click Seventh Brood would not back down. Pride and rigid efficiency drove the Quillari. Conflict approached. Danny worked late in the maintenance bay when he heard Ruth's voice calling him. She ran toward his workstation, breathing hard. "Security is starting early," she said. "They're rounding up Persids in Sector 4 right now." Danny dropped his tools and ran. Rusty leaped from his carrier and raced ahead, moving faster than any normal Persid should. They reached Sector 4 to find 3 Hronthi security guards with nets and stun weapons. A dozen Persids backed into a corner, hissing and yowling. "Stop!" Danny shouted. The lead guard, a massive reptilian named Gret, turned toward him. "Manager's orders. Animals must be removed. The deadline is 5 days away." Manager moved it up. "Too many complaints." Gret raised his net. "Stand aside, human." Danny positioned himself between the guards and the Persids. Ruth appeared beside him, then 2 other human engineers, then a Drellin family who lived on the station. More people arrived, forming a barrier. The Persids behind them fell silent, watching. Gret lowered his net slowly. "You will all be removed from the station for this." "Then remove us," Danny said quietly. In that moment, Bastet made her choice. She had waited long enough. These insects threatened her children and her chosen priest. She pulled power from every prayer ever spoken in her name, from every human who ever loved a cat, from the very essence of compassion itself. The barriers between worlds bent under her will. Golden light exploded through Sector 4. The guards dropped their weapons and stumbled backward. The humans shielded their eyes. The Persids began to glow with divine radiance, their fur shimmering like captured sunlight. Bastet manifested, not fully, not in her complete form, but enough. A towering figure of beauty and power appeared above the Persids, part woman, part lioness, crowned with the sun disk of ancient Egypt. Her eyes blazed with protective fury. Her voice resonated through every being present, not heard but felt directly in their minds. "These creatures are under my protection. Those who harm them harm me." Gret fell to his knees. The other guards fled, their training forgotten in the face of divine presence. Click Seventh Brood, monitoring from his office through security cameras, watched his screens with all his compound eyes wide in shock. The Drellin family bowed their heads in respect. Ruth laughed in amazement. Danny stood frozen, finally understanding what he had stumbled into. All those dreams, all those strange occurrences, the impossible healing. A goddess watched over the Persids, and somehow he had caught her attention. The light faded slowly. Bastet could not maintain her manifestation long, not yet, but she had made her point. The Persids remained glowing softly, marked with her blessing. Rusty walked to Danny and sat at his feet, looking up at him with eyes that now burned pure gold. News of the manifestation spread through the station within minutes. Every sensor had detected the massive energy spike. Ships in dock requested explanations. Religious aliens spoke of divine intervention. Scientific aliens demanded data. The Quillari management fell into chaos. Danny knelt beside Rusty and carefully touched the Persid's glowing fur. It felt warm, comforting. The small animal purred louder than ever before, a sound that seemed to resonate with something ancient and powerful. "What am I supposed to do?" Danny whispered. Rusty meowed once, then walked toward the lower maintenance levels. Danny followed without thinking. The Persid led him to an unused storage room. More Persids waited inside, all of them glowing softly. They surrounded Danny, purring in harmony. That night Bastet spoke to him clearly for the first time, not in dreams but in waking vision. She appeared before him, smaller now, more gentle. Her form shifted between woman and cat, never settling on one shape. "You awakened me," she said. "Your simple kindness, your pure heart. You remembered what humanity once knew, the sacred duty to protect those who cannot protect themselves." "I just fed some cats," Danny said. "Yes, and in doing so you honored something eternal," Bastet smiled. "I need a priest in this new age, someone to carry my message among the stars. Will you serve?" Danny looked at the Persids around him, at Rusty sitting proudly at his side, at Ruth watching from the doorway with wonder on her face. He thought about Click Seventh Brood cowering in his office, about the humans who came from across space to help, about divine power manifesting over a simple act of feeding hungry animals. "I'm just a mechanic." "You are more than you know." Sleep did not come easily that night. Danny lay in his quarters, staring at the ceiling while Rusty purred on his chest. A goddess wanted him to be her priest. The concept seemed absurd. He fixed atmospheric processors and gravity plating. He did not lead religious ceremonies or speak divine wisdom. Yet the Persids glowed with Bastet's blessing. The entire station had witnessed her manifestation. Something fundamental had changed, and Danny stood at the center of it. Morning brought unexpected visitors. Click Seventh Brood appeared at Danny's door, flanked by 2 station council members. The Quillari looked smaller somehow, his antennae drooping with stress. "We need to discuss the situation," the manager said carefully. They gathered in a conference room. Danny, Ruth, 3 other human captains, the Drellin family representatives, and even a Veshan trader who had witnessed the manifestation. Click Seventh Brood sat at the head of the table, his compound eyes darting nervously. "What happened yesterday cannot be explained by any known science," the manager began. "Energy readings were off all scales. Multiple species reported sensory experiences consistent with religious visions. The station's reputation is at stake." "The Persids stay," Danny said flatly. Click Seventh Brood's mandibles clicked in agitation. "That is not the issue anymore. Ships are arriving specifically to see the blessed animals. 17 new vessels docked overnight. Tourism is increasing by the hour. The economic implications are significant." Ruth leaned back in her chair. "Sounds like those worthless animals are bringing in credits now." The Quillari manager's antennae twitched. "I propose a compromise. The Persids receive protected status. A section of the lower maintenance levels becomes their official sanctuary. Mr. Reeves is employed as their primary caretaker with appropriate compensation." "Funded by who?" Danny asked. "Station budget, supplemented by donations from visitors." Click Seventh Brood pulled up a data pad. "Preliminary calculations show this could be very profitable. Humans across the sector are already discussing pilgrimages here." Danny felt overwhelmed. He just wanted to feed some cats. Now he was negotiating their status in formal meetings with management. Rusty sat on his lap, glowing faintly, radiating divine approval. The Persid seemed perfectly comfortable with these developments. The council voted. Protection for the Persids passed unanimously. Danny received an official position with a salary 3 times his current pay. The lower maintenance levels would be converted into a proper sanctuary with comfortable spaces for the animals and visiting humans. As the meeting ended, a human woman entered carrying two small purses. She had traveled from a nearby mining colony specifically to donate them. "Heard you're building a sanctuary," she said. "These two needed a home." More ships arrived throughout the day. Some brought supplies. Others carried purses found on failed colonies or abandoned stations. Each animal was checked for health issues and welcomed into the growing community. The numbers swelled from 37 to 65 by evening. Bastet watched this with growing joy. Her power strengthened with each act of compassion, each human who chose kindness over convenience. She appeared to Danny again that night, more solid than before. "You see what you started," she said. "I didn't mean to start anything. The best movements begin that way. No grand plans, just one person doing what is right." The goddess settled into a more comfortable form, appearing as a woman with feline ears and a tail. "I have been gone from this world too long. Humanity forgot me, forgot the sacred bonds, but you remembered in your heart." Danny stroked Rusty's glowing fur. "What do you want from me?" "Spread this message among the stars. Show humanity that caring for small, helpless things makes us strong, not weak. Other species see your compassion and learn." Bastet gestured toward the viewport where alien ships floated in dock. "The Drellin understand now. Even the Veshan traders speak of your dedication. You teach through action." "I don't know how to be a priest." "You already are one. Every time you feed the purses, you perform a sacred act. Every kind word you speak is a prayer." She smiled. "I do not need elaborate temples or complex rituals. I need honest hearts and gentle hands." Construction on the sanctuary began the next day. Human engineers volunteered their time. The Drellin family donated materials. Even a few Veshan traders contributed, seeing the economic opportunity but also appreciating the principle. The lower maintenance levels transformed into a comfortable space with soft bedding areas, climbing structures, and feeding stations. Danny spent his days overseeing the work while continuing to care for the purses. He learned their individual needs, their personalities, which ones required extra attention. Rusty stayed at his side constantly, the small pursid becoming a familiar in truth. Other animals seemed to defer to Rusty, recognizing the divine connection. Ruth approached him during a break in construction. "Got news from the outer colonies. Humans there are setting up their own pursid sanctuaries, calling it the Bastet movement." "The what?" "You started something bigger than you realized, Danny. Humans are remembering old traditions, creating new ones. Ships are carrying blessed pursids as good luck. Stations are establishing shrines." She grinned. "You're becoming famous." Danny grimaced. "I just want to feed cats." "Too late for that." The sanctuary opened 2 weeks after Bastet's manifestation. Hundreds of humans attended the informal ceremony. Danny spoke briefly, uncomfortable with the attention. He explained the importance of protecting vulnerable creatures, of kindness without expectation. Rusty sat on his shoulder through the whole speech, purring approval. That evening, Danny walked through the completed sanctuary. Pursids lounged on soft cushions, played with simple toys, and ate from clean bowls. They seemed content, safe. He had given them this. With Bastet's blessing and human compassion, these animals would never face abandonment again. A young woman waited near the entrance, her eyes red from crying. "Can I help feed them?" she asked quietly. Danny studied her. She looked lost, broken by something. He recognized that expression. "What's your name?" "Bates Santos. My colony failed, lost everything. Someone said coming here might help." Danny handed her a container of food. "Let's start with the evening feeding. They get hungry around now." Bates' face brightened slightly as the pursids approached, meowing softly. She poured food into the bowls with shaking hands, and for the first time since arriving on the station, she smiled. Bate Santos became a regular presence at the sanctuary. She arrived every morning to help with feeding, stayed through the afternoon cleaning and organizing, and only left when Danny gently reminded her to rest. The Persids responded to her with affection, seeming to sense her need for comfort. Patch claimed her as a favorite human, following Bate everywhere and sleeping in her lap during quiet moments. Danny watched this transformation with quiet satisfaction. He recognized what was happening. Bate found purpose in caring for these animals, the same way he had. The weight of her losses still pressed on her, but the Persids gave her something to focus on beyond her pain. "She reminds me of myself," Danny told Rusty one evening. The glowing Persid sat on his workbench, watching him repair a food dispenser, lost and looking for meaning. Rusty meowed in agreement. The small animal's golden eyes seemed to understand far more than any normal creature should. Sometimes Danny caught glimpses of Bastet looking through those eyes, checking on her priest and her children. News continued spreading across human space. Ships carried blessed Persids to distant stations and colonies. Small shrines appeared in cargo bays and crew quarters. Humans started wearing symbols of cats, simple pendants or patches on their uniforms. The ancient connection between human and feline re-established itself across hundreds of worlds. Not everyone appreciated this development. A Hronthi merchant complained loudly in the station cantina about humans wasting resources on animals when practical matters needed attention. Ruth overheard and approached his table. "You think it's wasteful?" she asked calmly. The Hronthi bared his teeth. "Your species makes no sense. These creatures serve no purpose." "They remind us what we're working for," Ruth said. "Out here in the dark, it's easy to forget why we left Earth. The Persids help us remember that life is worth protecting, even small, helpless life, especially that." The merchant snorted but said nothing more. Other aliens at nearby tables listened thoughtfully. A Veshan trader nodded slowly, thinking of the small flying creatures his people kept as companions. Perhaps humans were not so strange after all. Bastet felt her influence spreading with each conversation, each act of kindness inspired by Danny's example. She manifested more easily now, appearing to her priest regularly. Sometimes she took solid form, sitting with him in the sanctuary while Persids played around them. "You've done well," she said one night. "Humanity remembers me again." "They remember compassion," Danny corrected gently. "You're just the symbol." The goddess laughed, a sound like distant bells. "Wise words from my humble priest. You are right, of course. I am not the message but the messenger. The lesson is kindness itself." "What happens now?" "Now you must decide your path. Ruth brings news of a new sanctuary being built. They want your guidance." Danny had heard about this project. A coalition of human traders purchased an abandoned mining facility in a neighboring system. They planned to convert it into a major way station and Persid sanctuary called New Bastet Station. The project needed experienced leadership. They wanted Danny. "I can't leave," he said. "The sanctuary here needs me. Bate is learning, but she's not ready." "Is she not?" Bastet gestured toward the sanctuary entrance where Bate carefully tended to a Persid with an injured paw. The young woman worked with confidence now, speaking softly to the animal while applying antiseptic. "She has learned from the best teacher." Danny watched Bate for a long moment. She had transformed over the past month. The broken woman who arrived seeking solace had found strength through caring for others. She knew every Persid by name now. She understood their needs, their habits, their personalities. "She could do this," Danny admitted. "Then you know what you must do. Your role is not to stay in one place but to spread this message among the stars. Other sanctuaries need your knowledge. Other humans need to see that caring for small lives gives meaning to big ones." The decision weighed on Danny for days. He spoke with Bate about the possibility of taking over the sanctuary. She seemed terrified at first, convinced she could not handle the responsibility. But Patch rubbed against her legs and purred, and something in the Persid's golden-flecked eyes gave her courage. "I can do this," Bates said finally. "You taught me well." Ruth arrived with her ship a week later, ready to transport Danny and several blessed Persids to the new sanctuary. The entire station gathered to see them off. Click Seventh Brood gave a formal speech about cultural exchange and economic cooperation. Humans thanked Danny for showing them the way back to forgotten values. Even a few alien species offered grudging respect. Bates stood at the sanctuary entrance with Patch in her arms. Tears streamed down her face, but she smiled. "Thank you for giving me a reason to keep going." "You gave yourself that reason," Danny said. "I just showed you where to look." The Persids seemed to understand what was happening. They gathered around Danny for one final feeding, purring in harmony. Stripe rubbed against his legs. Socks meowed softly. Even the shy ones approached to say goodbye. Rusty remained at Danny's side, ready to follow his priest wherever the path led. Danny carried 3 Persids onto Ruth's ship: Rusty, a black female he named Shadow, and a young orange kitten called Spark. These 3 would help establish the new sanctuary, carrying Bastet's blessing to another world. More Persids would follow on later ships. As the vessel undocked from Orbital Station 17, Danny watched through the viewport. The station shrank into the distance, a wheel of light spinning against the dark. Bate would continue his work there. The sanctuary would thrive under her care, but his journey was just beginning. Bastet appeared beside him, visible only to Danny and the Persids. "Are you ready, my priest?" Danny smiled and scratched Rusty behind the ears. The Persid purred loud enough to vibrate through his chest. "I fed some cats and accidentally started a religious movement. Ready doesn't really apply anymore." "Then you are exactly ready enough." The goddess laughed and faded, returning to her divine realm to watch over her growing number of followers across the stars. Ruth called from the cockpit. 3-day journey to New Bastet Station. Hope you're comfortable with cats because we've got incoming ships wanting to join our convoy. Word spreads fast. Danny settled into a crew seat with Rusty on his lap. Shadow and Spark explored the cargo bay, investigating every corner with feline curiosity. Outside the viewport, stars stretched into lines as the ship entered faster-than-light travel. Somewhere ahead, a new sanctuary waited. New humans needed guidance. New Persids needed protection. The mechanic who fed cats was going to build a temple. The convoy reached New Bastet Station 3 months after construction began. What had been an abandoned mining facility now gleamed with new life. Human engineers transformed the old extraction platforms into living spaces, the ore processing centers into cargo bays, and the massive central cavern into something extraordinary. The sanctuary sprawled across 2 entire levels. Climbing structures reached toward high ceilings. Comfortable sleeping areas lined the walls. Feeding stations dotted the landscape. Large windows showed the stars beyond, giving the Persids entertainment and natural light cycles. It was beautiful, far beyond what Danny had imagined. Ruth walked beside him as they toured the facility. The coalition invested heavily. Ships donated materials and labor, even got some alien species contributing. The Drellin sent environmental systems. Veshan traders provided temperature controls suitable for Persids. "This is too much," Danny said quietly. "This is just the beginning." Rusty rode on Danny's shoulder, surveying the new domain with approval. Shadow and Spark had already claimed a climbing structure, playing together while dozens of humans watched with delight. More Persids arrived daily from across the sector. The sanctuary would house hundreds, maybe thousands eventually. Bastet manifested beside Danny, visible this time to everyone present. She had grown powerful enough for physical form, fed by the faith of humans across 50 systems. Her appearance caused gasps and whispers, but no fear. People knew her now, recognized her blessing. "Well done, my priest," she said. Danny felt uncomfortable with the title but had stopped arguing about it. Just following where you led. No, I follow where you lead. Your compassion opened this path. I merely walk it with you. The first formal ceremony took place that evening. Danny had prepared simple words, nothing fancy or complex. He spoke about the bond between human and cat spanning thousands of years, about how caring for small lives gave meaning to existence among the vast emptiness of space, about protection and compassion as humanity's greatest strengths. Hundreds of humans listened. Some cried. Others smiled and held their own purses close. When Danny finished, they did not applaud. They simply opened their arms and dozens of blessed purses flooded the sanctuary, glowing softly in the dim light. The sight was breathtaking. A young man approached Danny afterward. I'm a fighter pilot for the Colonial Defense Force. Lost my whole squadron last year. Came here because I heard you found purpose after losing your way. I was never lost, Danny said, just alone. Same thing sometimes. Danny handed him a container of pursed food. Evening feeding starts in an hour. Could use help. The pilot smiled for the first time in months. I can do that. Days turned to weeks. The sanctuary established its rhythms. Morning feeding, afternoon playtime, evening quiet hours. Danny trained volunteers in proper pursed care. He taught them to recognize illness, to understand behavior, to provide comfort without overwhelming the animals. Bates sent regular messages from Orbital Station 17, reporting success with her sanctuary. Her confidence grew with each update. Other sanctuaries opened across human space. Small ones on survey ships, medium facilities on colony worlds, major centers on established stations. Each one followed the basic principles Danny established: compassion without expectation, protection of the vulnerable, finding purpose through service. The Bastet movement spread like wildfire through humanity's scattered civilization. Alien species watched with growing understanding. The Hronthi, initially dismissive, began to see strength in humanity's dedication to protecting smaller beings. If humans defended cats so fiercely, how much more would they defend their friends? The Quillari noted the economic benefits of human tourism and cultural exchange. The Veshan traders recognized parallels to their own companion creatures and built bridges of understanding. Bastet walked openly through the sanctuary now, her divine presence accepted as natural. She spoke with visitors, blessed new purses, and guided Danny in his expanding role. More humans sought audience with the mechanic priest who accidentally founded a faith movement. I still don't understand why me, Danny said one evening. They sat in the observation deck, watching stars wheel past the windows. Rusty dozed in his lap, Spark played with Shadow nearby. Because you never wanted anything in return, Bastet answered. The purest faith comes from those who serve without seeking reward. You fed cats because they were hungry. You protected them because they needed protection. Everything that followed grew from that simple honesty. Other people would have done the same. Many would have, but you were in the right place at the right moment. The universe works that way sometimes. Small actions create massive changes. A commotion near the entrance drew their attention. A group of humans arrived carrying an injured pursuit on a stretcher. Danny rushed over immediately, falling into his natural role. He examined the animal carefully, noting trauma from some kind of accident. The pursuit's breathing was shallow, its pulse weak. Get me medical supplies, Danny ordered. Volunteers scattered to obey. For the next 3 hours, Danny worked to save the injured pursuit. He used skills learned in the maintenance bay, knowledge gained from treating hundreds of sick and wounded animals. Others watched in silence, seeing their priest at his truest work, not speaking divine wisdom or performing elaborate rituals, but simply helping a creature that needed help. The pursuit survived. As its breathing stabilized and its eyes opened, golden light spread through its fur. Bastet's blessing, marking another life saved through compassion. Danny sat back, exhausted and covered in medical supplies, and smiled. "This is who you are," Bastet said softly. "Not the ceremonies or the speeches. This, saving one small life because it matters." Danny nodded. "Somebody has to." "Yes, and you taught humanity to be that somebody again." Years would pass. New Bastet Station would grow into a major waypoint. Danny would train hundreds of caretakers, establish protocols that spread across human civilization, and show the galaxy that humanity's strength lay not in weapons or technology but in their capacity for kindness. The mechanic who fed cats would become legend, though he would never seek that fame. But all of that was future. For now, Danny simply sat in the quiet sanctuary, surrounded by purring animals and soft golden light. Rusty climbed onto his shoulder and settled there with a contented rumble. Through the windows, stars shone eternal and beautiful. Somewhere in the divine realm, a goddess smiled at her humble priest who changed the galaxy one bowl of food at a time. The Perseids needed feeding in an hour. Danny stood and got to work. Always more work to do, more cats to care for, more lives to protect. And that was exactly how he wanted it.